What's up, Lions Nation? And welcome back to Lions News Fan Report, your number one source for breaking news, insider rumors, and deep dive analysis on our beloved Detroit Lions. Before we get into today's bombshell, make sure you're strapped in, because what I'm about to share with you has been circulating in NFL circles over the past 48 hours, and it involves one of our most electrifying players. This isn't your typical injury update or game recap. This is something that could potentially reshape the entire trajectory of our franchise moving forward. And I need you to stick with me until the very end, because the implications are massive dots. So here's what's been happening behind closed doors. Over the weekend, whispers started emerging from sources close to the organization. And let me tell you, when I first heard this, I had to double-check everything because it seemed almost impossible given recent events. We're talking about a player who just months ago committed his future to Detroit, a player who has become the heartbeat of our offense, a player who embodies everything this franchise stands for in terms of grit, determination, and excellence. But in the NFL, nothing is ever set in stone, and what seemed like a rock-solid situation might be showing some unexpected cracks. Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably running through the roster in your mind right now, trying to figure out who I'm talking about. Is it a defensive star? Is it one of our offensive linemen? Is it someone in the secondary? Well, let me paint you a picture first. This player has been absolutely dominant, putting up numbers that rank him among the elite at his position. Through 9 games, we're looking at 64 receptions on 82 targets, 693 receiving yards, and 8 touchdowns. Those numbers place him 5th in the league in receiving yards and 4th in reception. We're talking about consistency at the highest level, the kind of production that championship teams are built around. This is a player who signed a 4-year, $120 million contract extension back in April 2024, a deal that was supposed to keep him in Honolulu Blue through the 2028 season. The front office made it crystal clear that he was a cornerstone piece of this organization's future. Dan Campbell praised his work ethic, his leadership, his ability to execute in crucial moments. Everything pointed to a long-term marriage between player and franchise. And yet, here we are in November, and rumors are starting to swirl that maybe, just maybe, things aren't as stable as they appear on the surface. Let me be clear about something right off the bat. I'm not here to spread baseless speculation or create drama where none exists. But as someone who's been covering this team day in and day out, who has connections throughout the organization and around the league, I can tell you that there's smoke here, and where there's smoke, we need to pay attention. The NFL is a business first and foremost, and we've seen time and time again how quickly situations can change, how quickly a player who seems untouchable can suddenly become available. So, what exactly am I hearing? Well, multiple sources have indicated that there have been conversations, exploratory in nature, between the Lions front office and several other teams regarding the availability of our star receiver. Now, before you panic, let me emphasize that these are preliminary discussions, the kind of due diligence that NFL teams engage in constantly. But the fact that these conversations are happening at all, given the timing and the circumstances, is noteworthy. We're talking about a player who just got paid, who's performing at an elite level, who's a 3-time Pro Bowler and 2-time All-Pro. Why would the Lions even entertain offers? That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And here's where we need to dive into the strategic thinking that might be at play here. The Lions are currently tied for first in the NFC North with a 6-3 record. We're legitimate Super Bowl contenders for the first time in decades. The roster is loaded with talent on both sides of the ball. So why rock the boat? Well, there are a few potential explanations, and I want to walk you through each one because understanding the rationale is crucial to understanding where this might be headed. First, there's the salary cap consideration. The Lions have been aggressive in recent years, signing multiple players to lucrative extensions, building a championship-caliber roster through both the draft and free agency. But that approach comes with long-term financial implications, with major extensions looming for other key players, including some on the defensive side of the ball. The front office might be looking at the bigger picture and asking themselves if they can afford to have so much money tied up at the receiver position, especially with other talented pass catchers on the roster who could step into a larger role. Second, there's the philosophical question of roster construction. The Lions have built their identity around a dominant running game and a physical offensive line. While having an elite receiver is certainly valuable, some within the organization might be wondering if that money could be better allocated to other positions, particularly on defense, where we've had some vulnerabilities this season. It's a legitimate debate, and one that front offices around the league grapple with constantly. Do you pay top dollar for a receiver, or do you invest that capital in the trenches? Third, and this is pure speculation on my part, there might be something going on behind the scenes that we're not privy to. Maybe there are philosophical differences between the player and the coaching staff. Maybe there are concerns about long-term durability or fit within the offensive scheme. Maybe there's been some friction that hasn't been made public. I want to stress that I have no concrete evidence of any of this, but in the NFL, these kinds of intangibles can sometimes drive decision-making just as much as on-field production. Now, here's where the story gets really interesting. The player in question, and yes, I'm talking about Amon-Ra St. Brown, has been incredibly active off the field lately, building his personal brand and engaging in various business ventures. Just this week, he announced a giveaway through the St. Brown Foundation, offering fans a chance to win a signed box of cereal, part of his ongoing partnership with General Mills that began back in July. He was featured on limited edition Honey Nut Cheerios boxes as part of their cereal training camp promotion, complete with his signature honey handstand touchdown celebration. On the surface, this is great stuff. A player building his brand, engaging with fans, securing endorsement deals. But some within NFL circles have quietly wondered if this increased focus on off-field ventures might be a sign that St. Brown is preparing for life beyond Detroit, or at least keeping his options open. Again, this is speculative, but it's the kind of thing that gets discussed in front offices and among media members who cover the league closely. Let me pump the brakes for a second and provide some perspective here. Amon-Ra St. Brown has been nothing short of phenomenal for Detroit Lions since being selected in the 4th round of the 2021 NFL Draft. He has exceeded every expectation, becoming one of the best value picks in recent memory. His precision route running, his toughness, his preparation, his ability to consistently beat defenders with elite timing. All of these qualities have made him a focal point of Detroit's offense. He's the kind of player you build around, not the kind of player you trade away when you're competing for a championship. And that's what makes these rumors so perplexing. The Lions are in win-now mode. We have a legitimate shot at bringing a Super Bowl title back to Detroit for the first time in franchise history. Dan Campbell has built something special here, a culture of toughness and resilience that has transformed this organization from a laughingstock into a legitimate contender. Trading away one of your best offensive weapons in the middle of a playoff push would seem to run counter to everything this regime has been building toward. So what's the truth here? Is this all just noise? The kind of baseless speculation that emerges every season as teams jockey for position and agents try to leverage interest from other teams? Or is there something more substantial to these rumors? Based on everything I'm hearing, I believe the truth lies somewhere in the middle. I don't think the Lions are actively shopping Amon-Ra St. Brown. I don't think they're looking to move him before the trade deadline or during the offseason. But I do think they're doing their due diligence, listening to offers, understanding what the market might be if they ever decided to go in a different direction. That's smart business, frankly. You should always know the value of your asset, even if you have no intention of moving them. And given St. Brown's elite production and reasonable contract, there would undoubtedly be significant interest from teams around the league if he were ever made available. Contenders looking for that final piece to put them over the top would line up to acquire a receiver of his caliber. The compensation would likely be substantial, potentially including multiple first-round picks and additional assets. But here's where I land on all this, and why I remain optimistic about St. Brown's future in Detroit. The Lions didn't give him $120 million to trade him 6 months later. They didn't make him a centerpiece of their offense to then pivot away from him when things are going well. Dan Campbell has consistently praised St. Brown's leadership, his work ethic, his ability to elevate the players around him. Those aren't the words of a coach who's planning to move on from a player. Those are the words of someone who sees that player as integral to the team's success. Moreover, when you look at the bigger picture, St. Brown represents everything this franchise wants to be. He's tough, he's relentless, He's a fourth-round pick who's outperformed his draft position and become a star through sheer determination and preparation. That's the Lions' identity right there. That's the kind of player and person you want representing your organization. Trading him would send the wrong message to the locker room, to the fan base, and to potential free agents considering Detroit as a destination. So, where does that leave us? I think these rumors, while noteworthy, are ultimately much ado about nothing. I think the Lions are doing what every smart organization, which is constantly evaluating their roster, understanding market values, and keeping their options open. But I don't believe there's any serious intention to move Amon-Ra St. Brown. Certainly not while we're in the middle of a legitimate Super Bowl push. He's too important to what we're trying to accomplish, both on the field and as a symbol of this franchise's resurgence. That said, I want to hear from you, Lions Nation. Do you think there's any validity to these rumors? Would you ever consider trading St. Brown, even for a massive haul of draft picks? Or is he untouchable in your eyes, a player you build around for the next 5 years? And if the front office did decide to explore a trade, what would you want in return? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, because this is the kind of discussion that gets to the heart of how we build a championship roster. As we head into Sunday Night Football against the Philadelphia Eagles, all eyes will be on Amon-Ra St. Brown and how he performs on the big stage. If these rumors have any effect on him, I expect it to be motivational. He's the kind of competitor who thrives on doubt, who uses any perceived slight as fuel. I wouldn't be surprised to see him put up a massive performance against Philly, reminding everyone why he's one of the best receivers in the NFL and why the Lions would be crazy to ever let him go. Look, at the end of the day, I'm optimistic about where this franchise is headed. We have the talent, we have the coaching, we have the culture. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a huge part of that equation, and I believe he'll be wearing Honolulu blue for years to come. But in the NFL, you can never be too comfortable. You can never assume anything is permanent. That's why we stay on top of these stories, why we dig into the rumors, why we try to separate fact from fiction. If you found this analysis valuable, if you appreciate getting the inside scoop before it hits mainstream media, then do me a favor. Smash that like button, subscribe to Lions News Fan Report if you haven't already, and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. We're here every single day bringing you the latest news, the deepest analysis, and the most informed perspective on your Detroit Lions. This is your community, your source for everything Lions, and I'm grateful to have you here as part of the pride. Share this video with your fellow Lions fans. Get the conversation started in the comments, and let's ride this wave together as we push toward the playoffs and beyond. The future is bright in Detroit, and Amon-Ra St. Brown is a big reason why. Until next time, One Pride, and let's go get that Super Bowl.